The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars are bright, we own the night. The stars are bright, we own. The stars.
Happy Friday. Tonight we have a very good conversation with Camryn Johnson. We're going to talk a little bit about some disparities that we see when we talk about hypertension, another word for high blood pressure. Tonight we're talking about hypertension, and sometimes there's a disparity when we speak of people going through hypertension. It's just like a whole thing. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, but first I want to tell you about our guest. Her name is Camryn Johnson. She and I met, or I actually sat in on a wonderful presentation she gave at the ACPM conference, which is the American Preventive Medicine Conference. She and her partners, they did like a wonderful job, and I basically hunted her down to do, to see if she would sit in on giving us like a mini version of her conversation at this conference. So Camryn Johnson is a senior undergraduate student at Duke University. She's pursuing a BS degree in biology, and she has 2 minors in chemistry and psychology. Camryn was first introduced to the severity of uncontrolled hypertension in Durham, North Carolina, through the BAS Connections, which is a program that is intended to facilitate interdisciplinary research with Duke undergraduate and graduate programs. In 2022, Camryn has been a member of the Closing Gap and Hypertension Disparities team from time on and has enjoyed every moment of it. Last year, she worked as a student volunteer who connected patients with uncontrolled hypertension to resources that would help address their specific needs and assisted patients in setting health-related goals for themselves. Currently, she works as a student volunteer coordinator and oversees the new student volunteers and their patient connections. Additionally, she helps write call scripts, connects the students with patient populations at other clinics. She also assists with in-person hypertension education classes, as well as communicates assignments and expectations with the team. Camryn is an aspiring physician and is hopeful that her team's initiative will leave a positive impact on their community, which I'm sure it will, and I know it will, because again, the presentation that Camryn gave was great. Hypertension, most people in the myeloma community, we know it very well because a lot of these meds sometimes do what they do, and you may have like an elevated, elevated pressure. So high blood pressure or hypertension is when the pressure in your blood vessels is too high. So the new standard is now 140/90. I believe it was 120/80. So it's changed over the last couple of years. It is common but can be serious if not treated. People with high blood pressure may not feel symptoms, The only way to know is to get your blood pressure checked. Things that increase the risk of having high blood pressure include age, older age, genetics, being overweight or obese, not being physically active, your diet, if you have high salt intake, or drinking a lot of alcohol. Okay, and this is from the WHO, the World Health Organization. So we know that many people with multiple myeloma, as I mentioned, may experience some elevation with hypertension that gets treated along with treatment or post-treatment.
How are you?
You
I
made it.
made it. Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy to be here and talk today. This is so
See,
nice.
we are so happy that you're here to
Yes.
speak with us tonight.
Thank you so much for
And I'm
inviting
glad
me.
your long ride is
Me
over.
too. Me
That was
too.
crazy.
Yes, but thank you for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here today to talk about all that and thank you for your wonderful introduction.
Oh, you're so very welcome. I just wanted to give everyone like the heads up. Um, I hope I wasn't rambling too much,
Oh
but I
no,
kind of
no, that
wanted
was really
I
great.
wanted to give you time as well to get situated. So if
Yes.
everything is working out perfect.
Thank you.
So I know I don't want you to, what I'm going to do is present, I guess, questions to some degree that will lead into our conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me a little bit, but let me back that up first. Briefly explain the specific population community trials and healthcare disparities. I guess when we speak of Durham, because that's like the example of your
Right.
presentation, and why reducing these barriers are so important.
Yeah. Um, so something that we wanted to talk about in our presentation was how hypertension, so 82.6 million adults in America have heart disease. And the 59% of Black women and 58.9% of Black males have heart disease, which is overwhelmingly high compared to their non-Hispanic white male and white female counterparts. In fact, like hypertension is the leading cause of preventable mortality and morbidity that affects Black populations disproportionately. These are the metrics from AHA and CDC. And so in Durham and in the southeast, there's really high prevalence of hypertension, especially uncontrolled. And so in Durham, North Carolina, the prevalence of hypertension is 33%. And we wanted to have our intervention because it allows us to work at a neighborhood and community level to reduce hypertension disparities in like education aspects or access to care, but also improve overall knowledge of what hypertension is and what we can do to make it better. Um, this was really important to me because many members of my family have hypertension, and it's something that I feel like, although it's so important, it's almost like a silent disease because you may not feel the effects of, oh, well, today I'm, 130 over 85, but tomorrow I'm 140 over 90. But over time, it can cause huge problems like stroke, kidney failure, heart attack. So it's really important that we as a group are able to talk about uncontrolled hypertension and ways that we can improve it, not only in the North Carolina community, but all across the US.
Okay, so we're talking about disparities, and obviously is going towards people of color,
Right.
Black people specifically. So when we talk about those high percentages,
Yeah.
do you think, and I listed like what are some risks, what are some possibilities of you having high blood pressure? Would you say that, I guess, like the best point to reference this, why it affects so many people, Black people, is genetics versus some of the other things that I kind of spoke about?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like it's hard to say. Like, we're starting to learn a lot more through genome-wide association studies about how stressors like racism, and other SCOH needs can actually affect your DNA through epigenomics. So it can alter like what genes are present and not. And I think the research around that is so interesting now, especially for better understanding why Black people have such high rates of uncontrolled hypertension. Um, as that information is coming out, we do know what we can control now, which would be the social determinants of health, getting better access to care, transportation, housing, food security. All of those can also impact your health because, as we know, hypertension and stress have their relationship is intertwined. And so, whether that stress is coming from one of those needs, from the effects of structural racism, it can definitely drive up your blood pressure. And like you were saying, we were able to do this through the federally qualified health center that we work with because 93% of the FQHC's patients represent historically marginalized groups. The majority of our patients identify as Black, and so this seemed like a good opportunity to try and work on addressing those social determinants. And now moving forward, it's really important that we invest in research for why Black patients might be experiencing hypertension at higher levels.
Okay, so how difficult of a task was this, to get this program up and running, and the importance of intentional patient advocacy and communication? Because I can imagine you guys coming into a community and
Yeah.
to educate them from beginning to end and then following up. That's kind of what was intriguing about the presentation
Yeah.
in terms of like how you guys like set it up. So I guess you can tell, give us like a summary of what consisted with the program for you guys going into this particular community.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that you asked that. I'm so glad that you enjoyed our presentation at ACPM because it was really fun and like it was a great learning experience for us. I was with my friend Anna Therikin, and she's an amazing team leader for us. So as we kind of mentioned at the conference, what the intervention aims to do is use telephone-based calls to allow our patients to kind of understand what hypertension is and what that means. So we use self-monitored blood pressures for them to be able to take it, report their scores to us, and then we also have classes available once a month at the FQHC for them to participate in, where there's educational learning around what hypertension is, what they can do using the AHA guidelines to help gain some control over that. So we have like nutritional learning, using the DASH diet, understanding like how to cut out sodium and how to cut out sugar, but also lifestyle changes. The American Heart Association's Life's Essential 8 talks about how getting more sleep, getting exercise, cutting out smoking, alcohol use can improve blood pressure. And so we do that. What we reported on at ACPM was our fall 2022 to spring 2023 cohort, where we had both graduate and undergraduate health profession students trained to make these calls and participate in the class and volunteer to do these weekly phone calls with our patients. And it's been an incredible experience. I've learned so much, and I'm so thankful for my mentors who have taught us a lot about how to be better future providers. But from the student perspective, it's been amazing to spend time with our patients in class and really hear about their experiences, not only as hypertension patients, but also all kinds of different patients, and hearing how their experience has been with healthcare and kind of hearing about their concerns when they meet with doctors sometimes. There's a lot of mistrust in our community with surrounding healthcare. And that's why, as a student, I'm hoping to be a better advocate for my patients and assisting them in that. So, yeah.
Appreciate, especially the future
Yeah.
doctors to, especially it takes so much focus within this particular community because sometimes we feel like our um, experience is not heard. So just to kind of have this whole thing around specifically this particular community that is more populated with the Black community, that's amazing. So let me ask you, okay, when you guys went into the community, did you find more people who were younger or older who were susceptible to this whole experience?
Yeah. I don't know if I would say susceptible, um, but we definitely have had a wide range of patients. The ones that come to our classes tend to be older than 50. And it's just been really interesting to hear about how they have been working to get their blood pressure down and what techniques they've taken. It's really, really interesting to hear from them. And it's a learning experience every time. I love hearing the modifications they make to their own diets as well. Just because we were talking about how there needs to be more cultural awareness as well when we make these recommendations for diets. Like, for instance, we can give people kale through fresh produce programs, but if you've never made a dish with kale before, you're given raw kale, you kind of don't know what to do. Or also understanding that sodium intake isn't just from like adding salt on top of your food, it's also from what you're putting into your food and what are you making it with. So it's just I've been so thankful to hear about what initiative our patients can take as well when given the resources that they need. Because that's been the most improvement I've seen is just being able to say, I'm here, I'm learning, and I appreciate this, and then I can take it and modify my lifestyle as well. So I've just learned a lot. It's been a really, really amazing experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is like your success rate?
Talking about this cohort from 2022 to 2023, we had 345 patients enrolled, with the average age being 55. We had an even amount of men and women enrolled, and all of those patients were non-Hispanic Black Americans. Um, so from that original 345, we were able to reach 234, which is good. We were able to at least get one touch with them. So that first, making sure that everyone in that cohort understood, do you have a blood pressure cuff? If you don't, would you like to get one for free? And then we asked them, would you like to talk on the phone 2 or more times over the next few weeks to discuss your blood pressure? From that 234, we were able to get 72 patients on the next phone call where we were able to then record their blood pressure numbers with their readings. And we were able to identify 30 patients who had health-related social needs or social determinant of health needs, and get that for them, whether that be transportation, medication costs, foods, housing, and other support. So as a result, from that 72 patient list, we were able to see a reduction in blood pressure from them, which was great through pre and post calls. We also had a few patients come to our classes, and other nutritional resources that we had. So that put our total number of patients at 138 for pre and post blood pressures. So this was really great. We were excited that we had such high participation. And from that, we saw I'm just looking at the numbers right now. Pre-intervention, and as you were 100% right, the AHA guidelines for hypertension now are 140 over 90. So initially, our patients had a blood pressure of 167 over 97, which is really high. That's the average. But after our intervention, we saw a decrease to 150 over 88. So that was really exciting to see a 17-point decrease in the systolic blood pressure, and nearly a 10-point decrease in that diastolic. While that's still hypertensive, this is a really good step forward. Just getting it down from 167 to 150 is a big step. And of course, the limitations are we can't say, oh, it was from that intervention, or maybe the patients who chose to participate had more resources to be able to, kind of drive themselves to bring down their blood pressure. But it was really exciting to see that for those who did participate, that it was coming down. And hopefully, with these new resources in place for them, they can maintain that throughout their care.